Welcome to Antarctica. 5.5 million square miles of white mystery. Unknown, untouched, unforgiving. Antarctica is one of the most perilous, dangerous places on Earth. The katabatic winds of Antarctica are some of the strongest on Earth. Yet the irony is, it's one of the most beautiful, scenic places anywhere in the world. Well, it all started in August of 2001 in Bakersfield, California, of all places. I was on a business trip. I was there for about a week. And at the end of one of the days, I was driving back to my hotel. I didn't have a book. I like to read. So I go into this bookstore and I see this unusual looking black and white photograph on the cover of a business book. And I was thinking to myself, what does this have to do with business? Within 10 minutes, I got it. The book was called Shackleton's Way. And it was the story of Ernest Shackleton. In 1914, hires 27 people. And their goal was very simple. For the 28 men to sail from England to Antarctica by ship. And then a small group of the 28 were going to attempt to do something nobody had ever thought of and that nobody had ever tried, which was to cross the entire continent of Antarctica on foot. When I first understood that, my instinctive thought was, I wish I worked for this guy. And the reason I was so drawn to this character of this guy named Ernest Shackleton was because he did something that had never been done before. I was instantly hooked, whatever you want to call it, by the character of somebody who had the courage, the creativity to try something, not only that he had never done, but that nobody had ever done. And that's when I decided to sign up for the first ever Antarctic Ice Marathon, 26.2 miles, on an ice shelf located 600 miles from the South Pole. So this was the perfect opportunity for me to get a small taste of what Ernest Shackleton and my other heroes had experienced 100 years before. The irony of this whole story is that here's this guy going to run this marathon in Antarctica, yet he lives in a place called San Diego. So through a random series of events, I sort of accidentally on purpose ended up on a sports talk radio station in San Diego. And these two characters thought this was the funniest thing in the world. Here's this local guy from San Diego going to run this marathon in Antarctica. This radio station got pumped into Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego. We're talking about millions of people. So when I hung the phone up, reality set in. I'm on the hook. I just basically told the world what I was going to do. There's no backing out. Then it hit me. How am I going to get ready for this? And I literally started dialing every phone number listed in the 2005 San Diego Yellow Page phone book listed under the word freezer. Nobody really took me seriously. After about a week, I ended up getting a hold of somebody at a place called Miramar Cold Storage, the largest cold storage facility in all of San Diego County. Now, the hard part of the freezer was not the fact that it was cold, and it got cold. It got down to about minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty cold. The hardest part of the freezer was the distance. You see, I only had 59 feet from one frozen metal wall to the other, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, people ask me the question, why didn't you put a treadmill in there? Nothing digital or electric works at minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, of course, the whole time I'm doing this, I'm thinking to myself, this is insane. This is like monotony beyond description. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, wait a minute. And I had a flashback to 1976. One of my 3 coaches, Ed, he looked at that 11-year-old kid on that Thursday night in 1976, and he said this, "Mike, you will play the game the way you practice. If you choose to make the practice harder, the game goes easier." He skated away. Little did I know at the time, 15 of the most important seconds of my entire life occurred right then and there, on the ice. Well, I thought about what Ed said, and then I thought, wait a minute. What if I look at difficulty the way Ed taught me 30 years ago? All of a sudden it hit me. Difficulty is a relative term, and I can change the definition. I started seeing difficulty as something to embrace, not push away. All the time I spent in that freezer, and I spent about 2 years in that freezer. I loved it because every time I was in that freezer going back and forth, I thought to myself, I'm changing the definition of difficulty. I started thinking about all the muscles from the neck up. The muscles of confidence, the muscles of discipline that exist in the mind of people. And that's what the back and forth really built. It was really more for these muscles than it was for these. When I got to Antarctica and I ran the marathon, it took 7 hours and 15 minutes. When I finished, here was my instinctive thought. Is that all there is? 7 hours seemed more like 7 minutes because I changed the definition of difficulty. I changed the definition of a marathon, and it's forever changed. Little did I know at the time that the building of the muscles of confidence and the muscles of discipline in the freezer would serve me in ways that are far more important than sports. When you hear the story of the difficulties that Angela has been through during our 30+ years together, it will inspire you to keep conquering and keep moving forward in a way you've never experienced.